everyone, Riot just released patch 9.3, and they have some interesting changes to Irelia. I don't necessarily agree with all of it. I want to try and take this from an unbiased perspective, but first I want to talk about Irelia. What is the problems with her? Let's just sum them up quickly. So the problems with Irelia is that she's too weak base stats wise, which means she doesn't have enough times where she's strong, or stronger than her opponent. She is too good at catching people and sticking to them. So the problem is every time right now when Irelia gets an advantage, she's generally going to kill her opponent because it's very hard to get away from her. She doesn't get an advantage very often. When she does, she's going to excel, which means the better the Irelia player is, the more advantage you get because you're better than the opponent or you're really good on the champion. And the more opportunities you get, the more kills you get and the more you snowball. That makes Irelia extremely bad in the hands of a bad player and extremely good in the hands of a good player. So she becomes very hard to balance due to how easy it is to abuse once you get that advantage. And if you get slightly ahead with a couple of kills, it's very hard to shut her down and she often takes over a game, which is a problem right now. So let's get into it. Base stats are good. Health growth is very good. They're increasing the base stats a little bit, 10 per level, which is 180 at max level. It's actually quite a big buff, I would say, and I agree with it. I think it's a good buff. The armor gets increased by 2, kind of irrelevant, doesn't really change that much, but sure, it's a nice buff. They want to increase the base stats. I get it. It's good. We go into the Ionian further, the passive. So they're changing the stacks. Normally it used to give damage per level or per stack. Now it's going to give attack speed per stack instead. Do you think this change matters much? Not really. I don't really care about it too much. I think it's a slight change. Could be a slight nerf, could be a slight buff, depending on the situations. But it's kind of not that important. What's important, however, is the stack cap. So what they're going to do is you always need 5 stacks to activate your max stack bonus, which is going to be more damage instead of attack speed, which it used to be, because they changed those around. Now the problem is you need 5 stacks. Normally, an Irelia combo, if you're not having minions around, would be you either opponent, you Q him, you W him, you Q him, right? That's 4 abilities. You're not going to get max stacks from that. So now that means Irelia is going to have more obvious weaknesses, which makes her way harder to balance. I don't think this is about nerfing her. I think it's about going in the wrong direction because they're making her harder to balance instead of easier. What they should maybe have done is nerf the stack cap to 3. That would have been a better way to balance her, and then they can nerf some other things. I wouldn't really care, to be honest. The problem now is that, let's say you want to fight in the river. You're going to walk around into the river, you find the enemy jungler, you don't have ultimate, you can't fight him because you're fucked now, you're useless. Which means Irelia will have to stick to her lane whenever she doesn't have her ultimate, because her roaming potential is absolutely garbage without ultimate now. She can't fight without her ultimate or minions. She needs either one of the two, right? Minions she can stack up on, and she can stack with her ultimate. If she doesn't have those two options, she won't be able to fight, and she's going to lose every fight, which means she's going to be irrelevant in a teamfight environment. Which means that she needs to be overpowered in the situations where she does excel. For example, when she's around minions or have ultimate, she needs to be overpowered now to balance out the fact that she's useless in all the other situations. I don't like this change. I think it's very stupid. And honestly, this is the dumbest change I've seen in probably a couple of years of League of Legends. I really dislike it a lot, because it just goes against everything I think Riot is trying to do with this champion. Now let's talk about the Q, because I already said the thing I dislike the most. The Q, bonus damage to minion increased. This is nice. It makes it better to Q jump. I think it's a good thing. I don't really think it's a negative thing at all, because right now it's kind of random. Oh my god, I missed a Q jump. I'm fucked now, because you lacked a tiny bit of damage. I think it's a good thing. It makes the champion more reliable and easier to balance again. W, another thing I dislike a lot. Damage reduction. 40% reduced physical and magic damage. 2, 50% reduced physical damage, 0% reduced magic damage. So, again, they're trying to make Irelia into a champion, from what I understand, that is more balanced and easier to balance, right? Which means you'd want her to be more around 50% win ratio, decent in pro play, but not super overpowered. Now, what does this do? This makes her extremely weird in pro play right now. So the thing is that you're going to pick a champion based on who you're against. And you're setting Irelia up to be, again, in a situation where if she's against a physical champion, she needs to be absolutely fucking overpowered for her to even be viable. Because every time she gets against a magic champion, Veigar, Castian, whatever, Victor top that's played a lot now, for example, just an example, or depending if she's top or mid, she's going to be useless. This is a dumb change because in pro play, as you can see right now, a lot of champions can go into multiple lanes. Casio can, Victor can, Vladimir. All of those champs can go into multiple lanes, even Riot, you know? So pro players will just swap around, try to counter her by putting an AP champion against her, which I think makes her have an obvious weakness. And again, it just enforces that she needs to be overpowered every time she's against an AD champion. She's going to be underpowered every time she's against an AP champion, or she's not going to be viable, which makes the champion very weird and harder to balance again. E flawless duet. Let's go to that one. So, visuals, the hitbox visuals are easier to see. I think, I do believe this has been a problem with her. In the beginning, in probably my first 100 games of Irelia, I had a hard time hitting the E's until I got really used to them and watched my replays, learning how to actually properly, perfectly hit them. And I think the visual just sucks in it. I believe every time you use it, it should be, let me see if I have paint. It should be something similar to this quickly, right? You fire out the first one, and then there's going to be a line to wherever you fire the second one, so you can see what you're going to stun, right? That's how I think it should be. Right now, it's just kind of random, and I don't really get the point. So that's how I believe it should be. And I hope they make it something like that, because right now it's just basically a dot here, and then you're going to put a dot here, for example, and you don't see a line between them, so you don't really see where you stun them, which is kind of weird to me. So I think this is a good change. I like it. It just helps with visuals. That's always a good thing. Anyways, guys, what do you think about the change? I think they're bad. I think it goes against everything Riot wants to do with her. I think it makes it harder to balance her, and she's either going to be even more overpowered once they start tuning her, because she needs a buff after this, obviously. After they start tuning her, she's going to be even harder to balance, because all of these changes goes against everything they want to do, and it just makes her have way more apparent weaknesses and strengths. Not a fan at all. Anyways, I want to hear what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys later and see you next time.